Okay, so good. So we left off with the people being compared to the wickedness of Sodom and Gomorrah. But then Isaiah goes on in chapter 1, verse 11. And remember, we've already seen a reference perhaps back in verse 1:4. People have forsaken the Lord. Perhaps a reference to apostasy, the one theme that we were talking about. Now here's the second one, the theme of the fact that worship, formal worship, temple worship, sacrifices, festivals, and all of that are simply not essential to the core value, but it's really about a proper society and social justice. So in verse 1:11 he says, "What to me is the multitude of your sacrifices, says the Lord. I have had enough of burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts. I do not delight in the blood of bulls, or of lambs, or of goats. When you come to appear before me, who asks this from your hand? Trample my courts no more. Bringing offerings is futile. Incense is an abomination to me. New moon and Sabbath and calling of convocation. I cannot endure solemn assemblies with iniquity. Your new moons and your appointed festivals my soul hates. They have become a burden to me. I am weary of bearing them. When you stretch out your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood. Wash yourselves. Make yourselves clean. Remove the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Cease to do evil. Learn to do good. Seek justice. Rescue the oppressed. Defend the orphan. Plead for the widow." Now once again, I think we have to keep in mind that all of these rituals that are mentioned here, these are all things that are mentioned in the Pentateuch, in the Torah, as being rituals that, according to the Torah, were instructed to Moses by God at Mount Sinai. And yet Isaiah is saying, guess what? All these rituals, it's not the core mission. It's not what God is looking for. I think it might be even something that we living in our modern times ought to really think about. That, worship, ritual, prayer, holidays, all that stuff is very nice. All of those things are very nice, but ultimately the core value is to seek justice, learn to do good, seek justice, rescue the oppressed. It's quite a powerful message. I'd like to take a look at Isaiah chapter 7. Now, this is a very controversial piece that I do here, because this is one of those pieces. If I was standing in front of the class, I would say to you, okay, I'm about to tell you something, an interpretation of this passage that you probably may not agree with. In fact, it might even seem heretical to some of you, and all I ask is that, if you want to throw something, eggs, tomatoes, just don't throw stones. But of course, I'm just kidding. Now you can't throw anything. But if you go to Isaiah chapter 7, you will notice that this is Isaiah's account of the Syro-Ephraimite War. That is the war of King Rezin of Aram and King Pekach of Israel in their attack against Ahaz of Judah in an attempt to overthrow him and to install another king. You will see in verse 6, this is sort of quoting these two kings, or paraphrasing what they're thinking. Isaiah says, quotes them, paraphrases what they're thinking. He says, "Let us go up against Judah and cut off Jerusalem and conquer it for ourselves and make the son of Tabeel king in it." All right, so there is this threat of an invasion by the king of Aram and the king of Israel against Ahaz, and Isaiah, an attempt to overthrow Ahaz in order to bring him into this anti-Assyrian coalition. And Isaiah says, in the name of God, in verse 7, "Therefore thus says the Lord God, it shall not stand, and it shall not come to pass. For the head of Aram is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin. Within 65 years, Ephraim will be shattered, no longer a people." Of course, it was shattered and no longer a people. The head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is the son of Remaliah, that is the king of the northern kingdom of Israel. If you do not stand firm in faith, you shall not stand at all. So in other words, Isaiah is saying to King Ahaz, have faith. This is not going to happen. These two kings are going to be defeated, and you simply have to have faith in God. Now, it's very interesting because the same account as we saw in the book of 2 Kings 16 says that the way that Ahaz was able to overcome this coalition was by submitting himself to King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria. Here, Isaiah has a little bit of a different take on this, and his take is you just have to have faith in God. And then it goes on and says, again, the Lord spoke to Ahaz, saying, ask a sign of the Lord your God. Let it be deep as Sheol or high as heaven. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, and I will not put the Lord to the test. Then Isaiah said, hear then, O house of David. That's the Davidic king, Ahaz. Is it too little for you to weary mortals, that you weary my God also? Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Look, the young woman is with child, and shall bear a son, and shall name him Emmanuel. He shall eat curds and honey by the time he knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good. For before the child knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land before whose two kings you are in dread will be deserted. The Lord will bring on you and on your people and on your ancestral house such days as have not come since the day that Ephraim departed from Judah, namely the king of Assyria. So, the idea here, as I understand it, is that Isaiah has told Ahaz, everything's going to be okay, have faith, I'll give you a sign. Ahaz says, I don't want a sign. Isaiah says, well, I'm going to give you a sign anyway. And the sign is, look, the young woman, verse 14, look, the young woman is with child, and shall bear a son, and shall name him Emmanuel. Now, if you look at some of the notes, like note E to young woman, you will notice that it says the Greek has virgin. And then you will see that the note F, it says that Emmanuel means God is with us. Now, the reason I say this is a bit controversial is because we're going to see when we begin to study the gospel literature that this verse is used in the Gospel of Matthew as referring to the birth of Jesus. He quotes this verse in God's annunciation to Mary to Joseph about the birth of a son. This verse is used. There are two problems. One is, as we see in this translation, the word that is translated virgin in Hebrew doesn't mean virgin. It means a young woman of childbearing years. You also notice that it says the woman is now with child and will give birth. And it also says that the threat from these two kings will be overcome, will be eliminated, before the child knows how to distinguish good from evil. Well, when does a child come to know good from evil? I don't know, sometime, maybe in 3, 4, 10, 15, whatever it is, not 700 years later. So Isaiah again is responding to contemporary events, what is happening in his real world, that is the invasion of these two kings against the kingdom of Judah and King Ahaz, and he is assuring King Ahaz that his dynasty will be safe, it will continue, his dynasty will continue, a child will be born, an heir will be born to him, or is being born to him. That heir will inherit his kingdom, and before this child is old enough, 3-4 years, which is the time that it took for the Syro-Ephraimite war to be fought, that by the time the child is 3 or 4 years old, the threat will be eliminated, and it will be eliminated by Assyria, which is exactly what happened. Now, what's interesting, however, here is that Assyria is clearly, as far as Isaiah is concerned, and we're going to see this in the prophets quite frequently, that Assyria has now become God's tool. In other words, God is using Assyria. It's not that King Ahaz was submitted to the king of Assyria. Assyria becomes God's tool. History itself becomes an area in which God operates. This is a little different than what we saw, say, in the book of Judges, where it says when the people did wrong, then God would sort of withdraw his support, and an enemy would take over, and then the people would cry out, and God would then again offer his support, and a hero would come along and rescue the people. Here I would suggest it's a little different. God is in control of history, and I think this is something in the development of monotheism in ancient Israel. God is in control of history. History is a stage, and God is the stage director and is orchestrating historical events. It will be the Assyrians who will punish the kingdom of Aram and the kingdom of Israel, but it is Assyria who is essentially under God's control. And I'm going to stop here and once again take up another section.